The large metal doors of Galactic Academy slid open with a soft hiss. Lyra Vexora took a deep breath and stepped inside. Her 4 eyes blinked nervously as she looked around the busy main hall. Students from many different planets rushed past her, but none looked quite like her. Lyra's violet skin shimmered under the bright lights. Her 2 antennae twitched slightly, picking up the many sounds and smells of the school. At 16 years old, she was the first Zenthian to ever attend this famous school among the stars. "Excuse me," she said softly to a group of students standing nearby. "Could you tell me where the dorm rooms are?" The students turned to look at her. Their eyes widened, and a few of them stepped back. One girl with blue skin, a proximate named Azura, forced a smile. "New student?" Azura asked, looking Lyra up and down. Lyra nodded. "Yes, I just arrived today." "Dorms are that way," another student said, pointing quickly down a hallway before turning away. Lyra picked up her bag and walked in that direction. She could hear whispers behind her. "Is that a Zenthian? I thought they never left their planet. Look at those antennae. So weird. 4 eyes. Gross." Lyra's shoulders dropped, but she kept walking. This wasn't new to her. Even though Zenthia had joined the Galactic Alliance 5 years ago, most people had never seen a Zenthian in person. What these students didn't know was that Lyra had spent most of her life on Earth. Her file said she had a human guardian, but few people bothered to read that part. They only saw her purple skin and extra eyes. When Lyra found her room, Azura was already there, putting clothes into a drawer. "Oh," Azura said, looking surprised. "You're my roommate." "I think so," Lyra said, placing her bag on the empty bed. "I'm Lyra." Azura nodded but didn't say much more. Within an hour, she had packed her things again and left. The next day, Lyra found out Azura had asked for a new room. Classes weren't any better. In galactic history, Lyra sat alone at a table meant for 4 students. In space mathematics, the teacher had to ask twice before anyone would work with her on a group project. "It's just a cultural adjustment," Miss Kelly told her after class. "Give them time." But time only made things worse. By the end of the first week, a name had spread through the school: Bug Eyes. Lyra heard it in the hallways, in the lunchroom, and even written in her digital textbook when she opened it one morning. During lunch on her 10th day, Lyra sat alone as usual. A group of students at the next table were laughing and looking in her direction. Their leader, a tall boy named Darius Kemp, son of an important government official, stood up. "Hey, Bug Eyes," he called. "Do those antennae pick up signals from space?" The table erupted in laughter. Lyra stared down at her food. She knew she should say something, but what? If she got angry, they would only make fun of her feelings too. Later that night, Lyra sat on her bed in her empty room. She looked at a small picture beside her bed. A human man with kind eyes and a strong face stood next to a Zenthian woman with the same violet skin as Lyra. Between them was a younger Lyra, smiling widely. "I can do this," she whispered to herself. "I can be strong like Dad taught me." But as she lay in bed that night, listening to the sounds of other students laughing in the hallway, she wondered if coming to the academy had been a mistake. Maybe she didn't belong here after all. What she didn't know was that things would get much worse before they got better, and when they did get better, it would be in a way that would change the academy forever. By the 2nd month at Galactic Academy, things had gotten much worse for Lyra. What started as whispers and stares had turned into daily problems that made her life hard. Darius Kemp and his friends had decided that making Lyra miserable was their new favorite game. Every morning, Lyra would find her locker had been messed with. One day, all her books were gone. Another day, someone had put smelly food inside that ruined her clothes. In xenobiology class, they were studying different alien species. Each student had to make a presentation about their own planet. "Today we'll hear from Lyra about Zenthia," said Professor Alan Wright, a thin man with glasses who never seemed to notice when students were being mean. Lyra walked to the front of the class and connected her datapad to the big screen. She had worked hard on this presentation, with pictures of Xenthia's purple forests and the beautiful crystal cities. But when she pressed start, different images appeared. The screen showed crude pictures of bug-like creatures labeled Xenthians crawling on the ground and eating garbage. The class burst into laughter. "This isn't my presentation," Lyra said quickly, her face hot with embarrassment. "Someone changed it." Professor Wright frowned. "Lyra, we expect serious work in this class. Please return to your seat." "But sir," Lyra tried to explain. "Now please," he said firmly. As Lyra walked back to her seat, she saw Darius and his friend Greg give each other a quick high five. They had replaced her work, but she couldn't prove it. That afternoon, Lyra went to see Dean Patricia Monroe, the head of the school. The dean's office was large, with pictures of graduating classes from the past 50 years on the walls. "What can I do for you, Miss Vexora?" Dean Monroe asked, not looking up from her computer. "I'm having some problems with other students," Lyra explained. "They've been taking my things, changing my schoolwork, and calling me names." Dean Monroe finally looked at her. "Part of attending Galactic Academy is learning to handle different cultures. Not everyone will understand Xenthian ways." "But they're not just misunderstanding me," Lyra said. "They're purposely being mean." The dean sighed. "Do you have proof of who's doing these things?" Lyra hesitated. "Well, no, but—" "Then there's not much I can do," Dean Monroe said. "I suggest you try harder to fit in. Maybe join a club or two." Lyra left the office feeling even worse than before. The school counselor, Dr. Eli Frost, wasn't any more helpful. "You're from a very different culture," he told her during their meeting. "Your 4 eyes and antennae make other students uncomfortable. Have you considered wearing sunglasses to hide 2 of your eyes? Or maybe a hat to cover your antennae?" "Why should I hide who I am?" Lyra asked, her voice shaking a little. Dr. Frost smiled in a way that didn't seem kind. "Because that's how you'll make friends, my dear." On her way back to her room, Lyra heard someone call her name. She turned to see Darius and 3 of his friends walking toward her. "Hey, Bug Eyes," Darius said with a mean smile. "We heard you went crying to the dean about us." "Leave me alone," Lyra said, trying to walk faster. Greg, the tallest of the group, stepped in front of her. "You know what happens to tattletales at this school." Before Lyra could answer, someone pushed her from behind. She fell forward, dropping her bag. Her books and papers scattered across the floor. "Oops," said Darius, pretending to be sorry. "Looks like the bug girl can't keep her balance." The group laughed as they walked away, stepping on her papers as they went. Lyra gathered her things slowly, fighting back tears. That night, she looked at the picture of her parents again. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," she whispered, but she knew her father would want her to be strong. What she didn't know was that soon, everything would change. The bullies thought they were powerful. They had no idea what was coming. The Stellar Athletics Tournament was the biggest event of the school year at Galactic Academy. Students from all grades competed in different sports, showing off their skills in front of the whole school. Despite everything that had happened, Lyra had decided to sign up for the anti-gravity relay race. On Earth, where she grew up, Lyra had always been good at sports. Her light Xenthian body made her faster and more agile than many humans. In the practice runs for the relay race, she had finished with the best time in her group. "You're really good at this," said Mina, one of the few students who was sometimes nice to Lyra. "You might even win." For the first time since coming to the academy, Lyra felt a small bit of hope. Maybe if she won the race, other students would see her differently. On the day of the tournament, the school's main stadium was packed with students and teachers. Lyra stood with the other racers, checking her gravity stabilizers, the special equipment that helped racers control their movements in the anti-gravity field. Something felt wrong. When she turned on her stabilizers, the left one made a strange buzzing sound. She checked the small control panel and saw that the power level was flickering between full and empty. "Coach Bennett," Lyra called, waving to get the attention of the athletic coach. "I think my stabilizers might be broken." Coach Susan Bennett, a tough woman who rarely smiled, came over with an annoyed look. "What's the problem now?" "My stabilizers aren't working right," Lyra explained, showing her the flickering power display. Coach Bennett barely looked at it. "They're fine. Everyone gets nervous before big races." "But," Lyra tried to explain. "Look," Coach Bennett cut her off. "You can either race with what you have, or you can quit. If you quit, don't bother coming back to my team." Lyra looked at the stabilizers again. Maybe the coach was right. Maybe she was just nervous. "Racers, take your positions," the announcer called. Lyra joined the other students at the starting line. She saw Darius in the stands, watching her with a strange smile. Something about that smile made her stomach feel sick. "Ready, set, go." The gravity field turned off, and the racers pushed off from the starting platform. At first, Lyra moved smoothly, pushing herself from one floating ring to the next just like in practice. She was actually in first place. Then it happened. As she reached for the third ring, her left stabilizer completely shut down. Her body spun wildly out of control. Instead of grabbing the ring, she missed by several feet. Without control, she crashed into a wall and then bounced toward the floor. Pain shot through her right arm as she hit the ground. Worse, she felt a terrible snap in her left antenna, a body part that was full of sensitive nerves for Xenthians. The crowd gasped. Through her pain, Lyra could hear some students laughing. Her vision blurred as medical staff rushed toward her. When she woke up in the medical bay, her arm was in a cast and her antenna was wrapped in a special healing bandage. The doctor told her she would be okay, but her antenna might never work quite the same again. That evening, as Lyra lay in the quiet medical room, the door opened. Darius and 4 of his friends walked in. "We came to say sorry," Darius said, but his smile showed he didn't mean it. Greg held up a small camera. "Smile for the picture. The whole school wants to see the alien who can't even fly straight." They took several pictures, laughing at how she looked with her bandages. One of them poked at her broken antenna, causing a flash of pain that made her cry out. "Oops, did that hurt?" the boy asked, pretending to be sorry while the others laughed harder. After they left, Lyra reached for her personal communicator with her good arm. With tears rolling down her face, she typed a short message and sent it through space to Earth. "Dad, I need you. Please come." Little did the bullies know that they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Help was on the way, and it wasn't the kind of help they were prepared for. 3 days after Lyra sent her message, the Galactic Academy was celebrating Founders' Day. All students and teachers gathered in the Grand Atrium, a huge room with a glass ceiling that showed the stars above. Dean Monroe stood on a stage, giving a speech about the school's history and values. "For over 100 years, our academy has welcomed students from across the galaxy," she said proudly. "We stand for unity, respect, and understanding between all intelligent species." Lyra sat in the back row, her arm still in a cast and her damaged antenna still wrapped in a healing bandage. She tried not to notice the students who pointed and whispered when they saw her. The pictures Darius had taken in the medical bay had spread throughout the school. Now everyone had seen her at her worst moment. Suddenly, a loud alarm sounded, cutting off Dean Monroe's speech. Red lights flashed across the atrium. "Security alert," a robotic voice announced. "Unidentified ship approaching. All students remain in place." The glass ceiling darkened slightly, allowing everyone to see the ship that was flying toward the academy. It was unlike any ship Lyra had seen before, sleek and black, with no markings or lights. It moved with amazing speed and perfect control. Commander Olivia Vasquez, the head of Academy Security, rushed onto the stage. She spoke quickly into her communication device. "Unidentified vessel. This is Galactic Academy security. You are not authorized to approach. Please identify yourself and change course immediately." There was no answer from the ship. Instead, it slowed down and began to land on the Academy's main docking pad, visible through the glass ceiling. "I repeat, you do not have permission to land," Commander Vasquez said, her voice more urgent now. Her device beeped, and her eyes widened as she looked at the screen. "That's impossible," she whispered, but everyone could hear her through the microphone. Dean Monroe stepped forward. "What is it, Commander?" "The ship just sent override codes from Galactic Central Command. Top-level clearance. We can't stop them from landing." The students began to talk excitedly. Who could have such important codes? Was it a government official? A famous general? The ship touched down gently on the landing pad. For a few moments, nothing happened. Then a door opened, and a single figure walked out. It was a human man. He wasn't very tall or muscular. He wore simple clothes, dark pants, a gray jacket, and boots. He had no weapons that anyone could see. His hair was short and starting to turn gray at the sides. Yet something about him made everyone in the atrium fall silent. He walked with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen many dangers and was afraid of none of them. Lyra stood up slowly from her seat, her good hand covering her mouth. "Dad," she whispered. The man walked straight toward the academy entrance. The security guards looked at each other nervously, unsure what to do. Commander Vasquez gave a small nod, and they stepped aside. When the main doors opened, the man walked into the atrium. His eyes scanned the room quickly, looking at each face until he found Lyra's. When he saw her injuries, something flashed in his eyes, something cold and dangerous. Dean Monroe hurried forward. "Sir, I'm Dean Patricia Monroe. This is most irregular. May I ask who you are, and why you've come to our academy in such a dramatic fashion?" The man looked at her calmly. "My name is Jack Miller. I believe you have my daughter enrolled here." A wave of whispers swept through the room. Some of the older students and teachers recognized the name. Jack Miller. The Jack Miller. Wasn't he a commander in the Earth Special Forces? I heard he was an advisor to 3 galactic presidents. They say he once negotiated peace with the Draconian Empire when no one else could even get them to talk. Darius, who had been laughing with his friends moments before, now looked pale. Like many students, he had studied recent galactic history. The name Jack Miller appeared in many important chapters. Dean Monroe's voice shook slightly. "Mr. Miller, perhaps we should speak in my office." Jack Miller nodded. "Yes, we should." Then he walked directly to Lyra and gently touched her face. "I'm here now," he said softly. "Everything will be okay." As father and daughter walked toward the dean's office, the room remained completely silent. For the first time since arriving at the academy, no one was laughing at Lyra Vexora. Dean Monroe's office felt very small with Jack Miller in it. He sat across from her desk, his face calm but his eyes sharp and watchful. Lyra sat beside him, looking down at her hands. "Mr. Miller," the dean began, trying to sound confident. "While we're always happy to have parents visit, there are proper channels. Let's not waste time," Jack said quietly. His voice wasn't loud, but it made the dean stop talking immediately. "I'm not here as a visitor. I'm here because my daughter was hurt under your care." He placed a small crystal on the desk. When he touched it, a light came from it and formed pictures in the air. The dean saw videos of students pushing Lyra in hallways, taking her things, and calling her names. The videos showed Darius and his friends breaking into her locker and later damaging her gravity stabilizers before the race. "How did you get these recordings?" Dean Monroe asked, her face turning pale. "All Zenthian children have neural implants that record what happens around them," Jack explained. "It's a safety measure. The bullies didn't know that." He touched the crystal again. Now they could see medical scans of Lyra's broken arm and damaged antenna. "Do you know what an antenna means to a Zenthian?" Jack asked. His voice was still quiet, but there was anger behind it now. It's not just for show. It's a vital organ that helps them understand the world around them. The damage your students caused might be permanent. Dean Monroe looked nervously at Lyra. We had no idea the injury was so serious. But I assure you, Mr. Miller, if we had known about this bullying. You did know. Jack cut in. Lyra reported it several times. Your staff told her to try harder to fit in. Your doctor didn't even scan her antenna properly after the accident. The dean started to speak, but Jack raised his hand slightly, and she fell silent again. You have 1 hour, he said, to bring everyone involved to the Great Hall. The students who did this, the teachers who looked away, everyone. Mr. Miller, Dean Monroe said, her voice shaking a little, these are just children. They made mistakes, but 1 hour, Jack repeated. After that, I'll take this matter to the Galactic Education Council. I'm sure they'd be interested to know how the famous academy treats students from newer member worlds. The dean understood the threat. A report to the council could damage the school's reputation forever. It could even lead to the academy losing its funding. Very well, she said. I'll gather everyone in the Great Hall. When they left the office, news had already spread throughout the school. Students lined the hallways, trying to get a look at the famous Jack Miller. Many stared at Lyra with new eyes, suddenly seeing her as someone important rather than someone to bully. Darius and his friends had been called to the dean's assistant's office. When they arrived, they found Jack and Lyra waiting for them. Are these the main ones? Jack asked his daughter. Lyra nodded, not meeting Darius's eyes. Darius tried to look brave. Sir, there's been a misunderstanding. We were just having fun. We didn't mean. Save it, Jack said. His eyes were cold as he looked at each of the boys. I've seen everything you did. I heard every word you said to my daughter. In the Great Hall, you'll have a chance to explain yourselves to everyone. Darius looked at his friends, suddenly not so confident. Are we in trouble? Jack Miller didn't answer. He just looked at them in a way that made them feel very small. An hour later, the Great Hall was filled with students and teachers. On one side stood Darius and his friends. On the other were the Academy's senior faculty. Jack Miller stood in the center, next to Lyra. The room was completely silent as Jack stepped forward to speak. No one knew what was about to happen, but everyone could feel that this was an important moment, one that would change the Academy forever. The Great Hall had never been so quiet. Hundreds of students and teachers waited nervously as Jack Miller walked to the center of the room. Lyra stood beside him, her injured antenna still wrapped in its healing bandage. I didn't come here to threaten or scare children, Jack began, his voice clear and strong. I came here to educate. He took out the crystal from his pocket again. This time, when he touched it, large images appeared in the air for everyone to see. The first images showed Earth long ago, cities burning, people fighting wars over resources and differences. This was humanity's darkest time, Jack said. We almost destroyed ourselves because we feared those who were different. Then the images changed to show a terrible sickness spreading across Earth. Hospitals full of sick people, scientists looking worried as they failed to find a cure. 25 years ago, a disease swept through Earth that our best doctors couldn't stop. Millions were dying. The next image showed a beautiful purple-skinned Zenthian woman with 4 eyes and delicate antennae, someone who looked a lot like Lyra. This is Naila Vexora, Jack said softly. She was the Zenthian ambassador to Earth. When she learned of our trouble, she brought medical technology from her world that saved millions of human lives. She did this while she was pregnant with our daughter. He looked at Lyra with love in his eyes. Naila became my wife. She died 3 years ago, believing our daughter would grow up in a better galaxy than she had known, a galaxy where different species could respect each other. Now Jack turned to look directly at Darius and his friends. You damaged my daughter's antennae, he said. His voice wasn't angry, but it was very serious. On Zenthia, that would be the same as deliberately making someone blind. Under galactic law, It's called xenomorphic assault, attacking another species' unique body parts. Darius looked at the floor, unable to meet Jack's eyes. Jack turned to address everyone. I could demand that these students be expelled. I could file charges that would follow them for life. But laws don't create respect. Understanding does. He walked over to where Professor Wright stood. In your xenobiology class, did you teach your students that Xenthian antennae contain thousands of sensitive nerves? That they help Xenthians understand emotions and detect dangers? The professor shook his head. I didn't know that myself. And you, Jack said to Coach Bennett. When my daughter told you her equipment was malfunctioning, why didn't you check it properly? The coach had no answer. Jack walked back to the center of the room. This isn't just about punishing a few bullies. This is about changing how you see others who are different from you. He showed a new image, Earth and Xenthia, two planets circling the same distant sun. Humans and Xenthians have more in common than you might think. We both value family. We both seek knowledge. We both want peace. My wife used to say that the greatest distance in the universe isn't between stars or planets. It's the distance we create when we refuse to understand each other. The room was completely silent. Many students looked ashamed. Some were even crying quietly. So here's what happens next, Jack said. Everyone leaned forward slightly, waiting to hear the punishment for Darius and his friends. First, the Academy will start a real cultural exchange program, with Lyra as its first coordinator. The students involved in the bullying will work directly with her, learning about Earth-Xenthian relations. Dean Monroe nodded quickly, clearly relieved that Jack wasn't demanding harsher punishment. Second, I will stay at the Academy for 1 month as a guest lecturer on interspecies diplomacy. During that time, the Academy will develop better policies to protect all students, no matter what planet they come from. Jack looked around the room one more time. The bullying stops today. Not just of my daughter, but of anyone who seems different. The next time I hear about a problem like this, I won't be so understanding. As he finished speaking, something unexpected happened. Darius Kemp stepped forward. Mr. Miller, he said in a shaking voice, I'm sorry for what we did to your daughter. I didn't understand. Jack looked at him for a long moment. Understanding begins with admitting when you're wrong. That's a good first step. As Jack and Lyra left the Great Hall, the students and teachers remained silent, thinking about everything they had heard. Something important had changed at Galactic Academy that day, and everyone knew it. The weeks that followed Jack Miller's arrival brought big changes to Galactic Academy. True to his word, Jack stayed for a month as a guest lecturer. His classes on interspecies diplomacy became the most popular at the school. Students crowded the classroom to hear his stories about negotiating peace between fighting worlds and helping different species understand each other. But the biggest change was in how students treated each other, especially Lyra. On the first day of the cultural exchange program, Lyra stood nervously in front of a small classroom. Darius and his friends sat in the front row, looking uncomfortable. Today, she began softly. I want to tell you about Xenthia. She showed them real pictures of her mother's homeworld, the crystal cities, the purple forests, and the beautiful floating gardens. She explained how Xenthian antennae helped them sense feelings and danger, and how their 4 eyes let them see things humans couldn't. When you damaged my antenna, she said to Darius, it was like losing part of my sense of the world. It's healing now, but it might never work the same way again. Darius looked down at his desk. I'm truly sorry, Lyra. I didn't understand what I was doing. I know, she said. That's why we're here now, to understand each other better. Over the following days, something remarkable happened. Darius, who had been Lyra's worst bully, became her strongest defender. When other students still made comments about her appearance, Darius was the first to speak up. Did you know her mother saved millions of humans from a deadly disease? He would say. Did you know her father helped negotiate peace with the Draconian Empire when everyone thought war was certain? Slowly, other students began to see Lyra differently. Some even started asking her questions about Zenthia and her life on Earth. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, Lyra made real friends. The Academy itself was changing too. Dean Monroe hired a Zenthian professor to teach xenobiology instead of Professor Wright. The new teacher, Professor Zara, taught students about the unique biology of all species in the galaxy, not just the common ones. Coach Bennett was required to take special training on safety for different species. The medical bay got new equipment designed for non-human students. By the end of the month, when it was time for Jack to leave, the Academy felt like a different place. On his last day, the school held a special ceremony. Dean Monroe stood on the stage of the Great Hall. 1 month ago, she said, we were reminded of our true mission, to bring different species together in understanding and respect. Today, we are proud to announce the creation of the Nyla Vexora Cultural Center, dedicated to Lyra's mother and all those who work for peace between worlds. Jack smiled at his daughter as she joined him on the stage. Her arm was healed now, and her antenna was unwrapped, though it still drooped slightly to one side. Are you going to be okay here now? He asked quietly. Lyra nodded. Yes, Dad. I think I am. After the ceremony, as Jack prepared to board his ship, Darius approached them. Mr. Miller, he said, I want to thank you for not having me expelled. I deserved it, but you gave me a chance to learn instead. Jack looked at the boy thoughtfully. Sometimes the hardest lesson is learning to see others as they truly are, not as we fear them to be. Darius nodded. I won't forget that. As Jack's ship rose into the sky, Lyra stood with her new friends, watching until it disappeared among the stars. She touched her healing antenna gently. Your dad is amazing, Minna said beside her. Yes, Lyra agreed with a smile. But he didn't just help me. He helped all of us see each other better. 6 months later, when Jack returned for Parents' Day, he found a very different academy. Lyra had started the first Zenthian cultural club on campus. Students from 20 different worlds had joined to learn about each other's customs and histories. As he watched his daughter confidently leading a discussion about interspecies communication, Jack thought of Nyla. She would have been proud to see how their daughter had transformed a place of fear into one of understanding, proving that sometimes the bravest thing isn't to fight back against bullies, but to help them understand a better way forward.